Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City, here is Steve Malzberg.
Last time we talked, you said it would be up to God, and even if God decided you should run, you wouldn't want to run. So tell me where you are.
Well, I'm listening. I'm in the listening process.
So would you say that's a step closer than you were from the last time we talked?
It is a step closer. I have to consider what's going on, and I have to consider the enormous crowds that I encounter every place I go, and the level of enthusiasm, and what I'm hearing. But I also have to see what happens in November. Is our nation going to indicate that they, in fact, are waking up, and that they are ready to move forward again? Or are we going to continue this long downward slide into a fundamental change?
All right, folks, that was my interview, my news-making interview with Dr. Ben Carson earlier in the week. Joining us now is the co-founder and chairman of the National Draft Ben Carson for President Committee and the great-grandson of John Philip Sousa, John Philip Sousa IV. Hello, sir.
Steve, how are you?
You know, I really want to spend the interview talking about what it's like to be the John Philip Sousa IV, the great-grandson of John Philip Sousa. But if we have time, we'll get to that, or we'll talk to you another time about that. It is a thrill for me to talk to you. But I'm amazed when I read the numbers at the scope of your undertaking and the success of your National Draft Ben Carson for President Committee.
It's astonishing, Steve, to think that we've been doing this for less than a year, that we've raised over $7 million, that we are within 12 hours of getting our 100,000 individual donor, and we have 17,000 volunteers. It's unprecedented.
It is. Now, what's your reason for loving Ben Carson enough to want him to be president? What do you see in him?
Well, it starts with love of country. It continues with, I think we're in a real trouble, and who can fix it? And we believe very strongly that Dr. Carson is either the only person or one of the very few people who can really turn America around and make us the country of exceptionalism again, which we are no longer. I mean, it's sad to say, I hate to say it, but that's where we are.
What differentiates himself? Why do you say that he's one of the few who can do that? What qualities does he have? What do you see in him that possibly you don't see in others on the Republican side?
He's not a politician. Let's start there. He's incredibly bright, and certainly there's lots of bright people around. But Steve, think about the process one would go through to figure out how to separate conjoined twins so that both halves live. The arteries, the nerves, the brains, everything that's involved with that. And Dr. Carson did that. And if he can do that, Steve, he can fix our immigration problem. He can fix the economy. He's a smart guy. He uses common sense. He relies on the Constitution. And that's what we need today.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about his brilliance, and don't get me wrong, I've spoken to him many times. I've met him several times, and I'm a big fan of his, and I think he would do very well. But I do, playing half devil's advocate here with you. How do you think the media would treat him based on how the media has treated him? Whenever he opens his mouth, they're looking for his foot to go in it, whether it goes in it, or even a little bit, or not at all?
Well, I mean, almost without exception, he's kept his foot out of his mouth. He's kept both feet out of his mouth.
But maybe it was a poor choice of words on my part. When he makes his analogies and then goes on to explain them, Still, they just take the analogy, which sometimes they're headline worthy, and they distort it. Or God is going to tell me if I should run, but then he goes on to explain it, but they just go with the headline that makes them look, in the minds of some kooky. So what I'm saying is, they're not cutting him the slack. They cut Barack Obama for being black. They're attacking him because he's a conservative black.
Of course. He's going to be the Uncle Tom. He's going to be the traitor. He's going to be called all kinds of names that have absolutely no bearing whatsoever on who and what this gentleman is. But that's the media. If you're a conservative, you come to expect it and you build it into your plan. And it's sadly part of everyday life.
John, have you met with Ben Carson?
I have met Ben Carson. Yes, I have.
And he's well aware of your undertaking, correct?
Oh yes, very much so.
When you talk with him, what impression do you get as far as the fire in the belly aspect of running for president, which you really have to have if you're going to go through with it?
Well, I need to be very clear on one point, Steve, and that is we are a super PAC. And as such, we're not allowed to communicate with Dr. Carson about the campaign in any way, shape, or form.
Gotcha.
So all we can do from our side of the table, Steve, is listen to what he says, watch how he acts, and watch what he does.
And when you do that, do you see the fire in the belly at this point?
When we started this, there was a little tiny flame like on a birthday candle, and now it's a raging bonfire. And if I were a gambling man and you said, is Carson going to run, I wouldn't bet the whole farm, but I'd sure bet the barn at this point.
Very interesting. John, it's a pleasure to talk to you. In the less than a minute we have left, what's the best part about being the great-grandson of John Philip Sousa?
Just really proud to be related to such a important and historic American.
All right, we will expand upon that at a future time, I promise you. I thank you for joining us, and Ben Carson, he's lucky to have you in his corner.
You're very kind, Steve. Thanks for the time.
My pleasure. And how can folks get a hold of you if they want to contribute or join?
RunBenRun.org.
Okay.
RunBenRun.org.
I didn't want to leave that out. RunBenRun.org. Okay, John, thank you very much. And folks, we'll be back with more of the Steve Malzberg Show after the break. But first, I want you to stay tuned for your Newsmax Now update.